First contact with fear. The first time I saw Captain Sarah Chen smile, I thought she was malfunctioning. We Verithak process fear through facial muscle contractions that humans would interpret as grimacing. But humans, they bare their teeth when they're happy. They bare their teeth when they're afraid. Sometimes, most disturbingly, they bare their teeth when they're about to do something terrible. I was serving as first observer on the coalition vessel Horizon's Edge, one of the first truly joint ventures between humanity and the collective of aligned species. The ship itself was a marvel of cooperation. Human ingenuity merged with collective technology. But it was the crew that made it unique. 12 species working together, learning to overcome our differences, all under the command of a human captain. That smile haunted me from our first meeting. "Welcome aboard, Observer Kexley," she said, showing those perfectly aligned teeth. "I've read your file. Impressive work during the Rigel incident." Her dark eyes crinkled at the corners, and I felt my secondary heart flutter with unease. How could she reference a disaster that claimed thousands of lives with such an expression? But that was before I understood. Before we all understood. The Horizon's Edge was tasked with patrolling the Outer Rim, where colonial disputes between various species had created a web of tension. Captain Chen had a reputation for resolving conflicts without bloodshed, though the methods in her file were oddly redacted. "Diplomatic solutions through demonstrated capability" was the official phrase. 3 standard months into our mission, we received the distress call. A mining colony in the Vega sector, screaming about shadows that moved wrong, about lights in the void that shouldn't exist, about death coming silently through sealed airlocks. "Plot a course," Chen ordered, and there was that smile again. Not the diplomatic one she used in meetings. This was smaller, tighter, like she was holding something back. Maximum speed. My second in command, a Trilixian named Vex, vibrated his sensing membranes in distress. "Captain, protocol dictates we wait for backup when encountering unknown hostile entities." "Noted, Officer Vex." Chen's fingers danced over her command console, bringing up sensor data. "How long would the nearest support take to arrive?" "Approximately 7 standard hours, Captain." "And how long do you think those colonists have?" Her smile never wavered, but something in her voice made my dermal layers contract. "Observer Kexley, what's your analysis of the distress call?" I reviewed the transmission again, my neural processors categorizing every detail. The pattern of communication degradation suggests systematic targeting of their communications infrastructure. This is not random violence or natural phenomena. They are being hunted. "Exactly." Chen stood, surveying the bridge crew. "Those people have minutes, not hours. We go in. Now." The collective members of the crew shared uncertain glances. Humans had a reputation for reckless heroics, for charging into situations that more rational species would avoid. But there was something else in Chen's expression, something I couldn't decipher. As we dropped out of FTL near the colony, the scene confirmed our worst fears. The mining station was dark, spinning slightly off its axis. Didris floated in lazy circles around it, and there, barely visible against the void, were shapes that seemed to drink in the starlight. "Life signs?" Chen asked, still wearing that unsettling smile. "Scattered throughout the station," our sensor operator reported. "But there's interference. Readings keep shifting." "Good." Chen's smile widened fractionally. "That means we're not too late." "Captain," I felt compelled to speak, "these readings match no known species in the collective database. We are facing a completely unknown threat." She turned to me then, and I saw something in her eyes that made me understand why humans evolved to show their teeth. It wasn't just about expressing emotion. It was about showing what kind of creature you were dealing with. "Unknown threats," she said softly, "are humanity's specialty. Observer, we've spent our entire history facing them. And do you know what we learned?" The bridge fell silent, waiting. "The unknown," she continued, her smile now razor-sharp, "should have been more afraid of us." That's when the shadows noticed our ship, and everything we thought we knew about warfare, about survival, about humanity, changed forever. The smile in the darkness. The attack came without warning. One moment, we were scanning the mining colony. The next, our sensors screamed as something phased through our shields like they weren't there. The shadows that had been circling the station turned their attention to us, and I learned why the colonists' distress call had been so fragmented. These beings didn't just attack ships. They consumed signals, energy, light itself. Multiple hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. Our damage control officer reported, their bioluminescent patches flashing with alarm. They're just passing through the armor. But Captain Chen's smile never faltered. If anything, it grew more pronounced. Interesting, she said, in the same tone one might use to discuss a minor sensor anomaly. Observer Kexley, what do your instruments tell you about these entities? I consulted my readings, trying to make sense of the contradictory data. They appear to exist partially out of phase with normal spacetime. Energy weapons pass through them. Physical projectiles have no effect, and they seem to absorb any form of radiation we direct at them. Perfect. Chen's response drew startled looks from the entire bridge crew. Executive Officer Monroe, initiate Protocol Lazarus. The human XO's face paled. Captain, that's still experimental. We don't know if. Now, Commander. As Monroe rushed to comply, I felt compelled to speak up. Captain, we have no effective weapons against these entities. The logical course would be to retreat and return with a better understanding off. They feed on energy. Chen interrupted, still smiling that predator smile. Every second we delay, more colonists die. Every minute we waste, these things learn more about us. And if we retreat, we teach them that they can hunt us with impunity. The deck shuddered beneath us as another shadow passed through the hull. Emergency force fields flickered and died. The temperature dropped precipitously as our environmental systems struggled to compensate for the vacuum breaches. All hands. Chen's voice rang through the ship-wide comm. Steady as a neutron star. Prepare for emergency protocols. This is not a retreat. This is not a surrender. This is a hunt. I watched in growing horror as she began shutting down system after system. Our weapons, our shields, our engines, everything that made us a functioning starship was being deliberately disabled. Captain, Vex chittered in alarm, you're leaving us defenseless. No, she corrected, that smile still playing at her lips. I'm making us irresistible. The shadows were all around us now, more numerous than before. They swirled through our halls like liquid darkness, consuming energy wherever they found it. Our emergency batteries drained in seconds. Even the bioluminescent crew members were forced to dampen their natural glow. In the growing darkness of the bridge, Chen's teeth seemed to gleam impossibly bright. You see, observer, humanity learned something important during our evolution, something that most species never had to face. She stood in the command chair, perfectly at ease as chaos erupted around us. We learned that sometimes, to defeat a predator, you have to let it think it's won. You have to let it get close. You have to let it get greedy. The shadows converged on the bridge, drawn by the last remaining power signatures. I could feel them now. A cold that went beyond temperature, a hunger that transcended physical needs. They were ancient. They were patient. They were absolute in their dominion over the dark. But they had never met humans before. You asked me once why I smile in crisis, Chen said, her voice barely a whisper in the void-like silence. It's because humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology, or our adaptability, or even our determination. It's our ability to look into the darkness and see opportunity. She pressed one final control, and deep within the ship, something awakened. Something that hummed with a frequency I had never encountered before. Welcome to the light, Chen said to the shadows. And then she showed us all why humans smile when they're about to win. Understanding the madness. What happened next defied everything I knew about physics, about warfare, about the nature of reality itself. The device Captain Chen activated, what she later called Project Sunforge, wasn't a weapon in any conventional sense. It was something far more insidious, something that could only have come from a human mind. Light, she had once told me during a quiet moment in the officers' mess, is just another form of radiation. And radiation, that's just excited particles doing a dance we taught them. Now I understood what she meant. The humming grew louder, and suddenly every piece of metal in the ship began to glow. Not with heat or electrical charge, but with something else. Something fundamental. The shadows, drawn in by what they perceived as a feast of energy, found themselves trapped in a web of quantum entanglement. The thing about darkness, Chen announced to the bridge, her smile now fierce and triumphant, is that it's not actually a thing. It's an absence, a void. But light is real. Light has mass. Light has momentum. And when you understand that, she paused, watching as the shadows began to writhe. You can make it dance. The metal of our ship, every bulkhead, every panel, every tiny screw, had been treated with an experimental quantum matrix developed in secret by human scientists. When activated, it didn't just emit light. It created a cascade of perfectly synchronized photons that existed in multiple states simultaneously. The shadows, creatures that had evolved to feed on energy by existing partially out of phase with normal spacetime, suddenly found themselves being forced into a single quantum state. They couldn't phase through matter anymore. They couldn't absorb energy. They were being made real. 3 minutes to full materialization, Monroe reported, his hands flying over the emergency backup console. Power reserves at critical levels. I watched in fascination as the shadows began to take solid form. They were beautiful in a terrible way. Crystalline structures that seemed to fold in on themselves infinitely, like fractals made of frozen void. But they were also dying, their very nature being fundamentally altered by Chen's trap. "Captain," I said, my scientific curiosity overriding my fear, "you're not just fighting them. You're changing the very rules they exist by." "Exactly." She turned to me, and her smile had softened slightly. "That's what humanity does best, observer. When we can't win the game, we change it. When the rules say something's impossible, we rewrite them. The universe tells us no, and we smile and ask why not." A shadow creature materialized fully on the bridge, its now solid form resembling a cross between a mantis and a black hole. It reached for Chen with limbs that still tried to bend reality, but could no longer quite manage it. She didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped toward it. "We've got you now," she whispered to it. "And we're going to learn everything about you. How you think, how you move, how you feed." And then, her smile turned predatory again. "Then we're going to teach you why humans don't fear the dark." The creature lunged at her, but Monroe was faster. A modified phase pistol, useless against their phased forms, but devastatingly effective now that they were solid, reduced it to glittering dust. "Status of the mining colony," Chen demanded, already moving on to the next phase of her plan. "Life signs stabilizing," our sensor operator reported. "The materialization effect is spreading through the station. We're reading 37 survivors." "Not enough." Chen's smile faded for the first time since the crisis began, replaced by a momentary grimace of genuine grief. "But more than zero. Begin rescue operations as soon as the last shadow is contained." I felt compelled to ask, "You knew this would work. You knew these creatures could be forced into our reality. That's why you kept smiling. You had a plan all along." "No," she corrected me. "I smiled because I knew we would find a way, even if this plan failed. Humans always do. We've spent our entire history staring into the darkness, Kexley. And do you know what we discovered?" The bridge crew, human and alien alike, waited for her answer. "We discovered that darkness is afraid of us. Because no matter how deep it gets, no matter how cold or empty or hopeless, we bring our own light. We make our own rules. We changed the game. As we began rescue operations, I finally understood why humans smile in the face of death. It's not madness. It's not even courage, exactly. It's the expression of a species that looked at the fundamental laws of the universe and decided they were more like guidelines, really. But we weren't done yet. The shadows were only the beginning. Something had sent them here, and Captain Chen's smile told me we were about to hunt it down. The price of victory. They were scouts, Captain Chen announced to the assembled crew in the emergency briefing room. The mining colony survivors had been evacuated. The materialized shadow creatures contained in specialized quantum fields, and now we faced the true challenge. The wall display showed sensor data from the captured entities, data that made my primary nervous system spasm with dread. These weren't just predators. They were engineered weapons, created by something far older and more terrible than we had initially suspected. The Voidmakers, Chen said, her smile now carrying an edge that made even her fellow humans uneasy. That's what the colonists called them in their final logs. An ancient species that learned to weaponize darkness itself. And now they know we're here. I studied the sensor readings again, trying to comprehend the implications. The shadow creatures were sending data back. Everything they learned about us, about how we fought them, is now in the hands of their creators, Chen finished. Good. The room erupted in confused murmurs. Lieutenant Commander Yara, our tactical officer, spoke up. Captain, with all due respect, how is this good? They'll adapt to the quantum matrix. They'll find a way around it. Chen's smile widened. Of course they will. And when they do, they'll come for us. Not just with shadows, but with everything they have. Because we did the one thing no species has ever done before. We hurt them. We showed them they're not invincible. That's suicide. Vex chittered. We should warn the collective. Fortify our borders. Prepare defensive measures. No. Chen's voice cut through the protests like a laser through vacuum. We're not going to hide. We're not going to defend. We're going to take the fight to them. She brought up a new display. A modified long-range scan showing distortions in space-time. Tears in reality that we'd all mistaken for natural phenomena. But now, with the data from the captured shadows, we could see them for what they were, doorways. The Voidmakers have been watching us for centuries, Chen explained. Testing our borders, probing our weaknesses. The shadows were just the latest test. But they made a crucial mistake. Her smile turned savage. They let us see them. The plan she outlined was insane. We would use the captured shadows' quantum signatures to track their point of origin. The horizon's edge would enter one of these tiers in reality, crossing into whatever dimension the Voidmakers called home. We would bring the war to them before they could fully mobilize against us. Captain, I felt compelled to speak. The chances of survival are irrelevant, she interrupted. Because if we don't do this now, humanity and the collective will face an enemy that knows our weaknesses, but whose strengths we can only guess at. This isn't about survival anymore. It's about making sure they learn the right lesson from all this. And what lesson is that? Monroe asked quietly. Chen's smile softened for a moment as she looked at her crew, human and alien alike, all watching her with a mixture of fear and fascination. That the light doesn't fear the dark. That for all their power, for all their ancient knowledge, they'd never understood one fundamental truth about the universe. She paused, and in that moment I saw something in her eyes that I had never seen before, not just determination or courage, but a deep, almost primal understanding of what we were about to face. The truth is, she continued, darkness only exists where light hasn't been brave enough to go. And humans, we've never known when to stop pushing back the dark. The next 12 hours were a blur of preparation. We modified our quantum matrix technology based on data from the captured shadows. Every crew member wrote final messages to their loved ones, though Chen insisted on calling them "see you later" notes instead of goodbyes. As we approached the largest reality tear, I found Chen in her ready room, studying tactical displays with that same unnerving smile. "You knew," I said. "From the moment you saw those shadows, you knew this was bigger than a simple rescue mission. That's why you kept smiling. You were happy to finally find them." She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw the full weight of command in her expression. "Humanity spent millennia afraid of the dark," Observer Kexley. "We told stories about what might be hiding in it. We built fires to keep it at bay. But then we did something no other species thought to do. We decided to master it instead of fear it." She stood, straightening her uniform. "The Voidmakers think darkness is their ally, their weapon. But they never faced a species that turned their own stars into weapons, that harnessed the power of black holes, that looked into the abyss and said, 'Nice place. Think we'll build here.'" The ship's alert system signaled our final approach to the tear in reality. Chen's smile returned, fiercer than ever. Time to show them why humans smile in the dark. What we learned about humans. The Voidmaker's dimension defied description. Imagine a space where darkness had weight, where silence had texture, where reality itself seemed to fold and unfold like origami made of night. Our instruments struggled to make sense of it, but Captain Chen just smiled that terrible smile and said, "Plot a course for the heart of their empire." She didn't ask how we knew where to go. She didn't need to. In this realm of perpetual darkness, the Voidmaker's civilization burned like a negative image. Places where even this darkness feared to tread. "You know what's funny?" Chen said as we approached their capital world, a massive structure that seemed to eat light itself. "They probably think they're the scary ones in this story." The battle that followed would be recorded in both human and collective histories as the Twilight Incursion. The Voidmakers, in their arrogance, had never built defenses against what we brought with us. They had mastered darkness, yes, but they had forgotten one crucial fact about light. It's not just illumination. It's radiation. It's particles. It's waves. It's a weapon that moves at the fastest possible speed in the universe. All hands. Chen's voice rang through the ship, still wearing that smile that I now understood was not madness, but pure, distilled humanity. Execute Operation Daybreak. The Horizon's edge had been modified during those 12 hours of preparation. Every piece of quantum matrix technology we had was now linked to our main reactor. As the Voidmaker's ships surrounded us, looking like holes cut in reality, Chen gave the order that would change everything. "Let there be light." Our ship didn't just emit light. It became light. The quantum matrix didn't just activate. It turned our entire vessel into a coherent beam of quantum-entangled photons. We became a laser made of possibility, a weapon that existed in every quantum state simultaneously. The Voidmaker's weapons, designed to corrupt and consume energy, try to absorb us. But you can't absorb something that's everywhere and nowhere at once. You can't fight an enemy that refuses to play by the rules of your reality. In the chaos that followed, I finally understood the true meaning of Chen's smile. It wasn't about joy, or madness, or even confidence. It was about knowledge. The deep, unshakable knowledge that humanity would always find a way to turn darkness into light. The Voidmaker's empire crumbled in hours. Their weapons failed against an enemy that had mastered both light and dark. Their ships fell to quantum cascades that forced them into realities they couldn't comprehend. Their great citadel of darkness became a beacon, broadcasting a warning to any who would follow their path. Humanity was here. Humanity brought the light. Humanity smiled. In the aftermath, as we limped home through tears in space, we had turned into permanent quantum corridors. I asked Chen one final question. Was this victory worth the price? She turned to me, and for the first time, her smile held sadness. Victory? No, Observer. This wasn't about victory. This was about responsibility. "I don't understand," I admitted. "Humanity learned something important during our evolution," she explained, looking out at the stars we had made safe. "We learned that intelligence comes with obligation. We climbed out of the dark, yes, But then we did something more important. We went back in to help others out too. She gestured to the quantum corridors, now stable paths through what had once been the Voidmaker's domain. We didn't just defeat them. We opened up their dark places to everyone. We made their shadows safe for travel, their weapons into tools, their empire into a warning. "And that's why you smile?" I asked. "Because you turned their darkness into light." "No," she said softly. "I smile because that's what humans do. We face the darkness with hope, we fight it with determination, and we smile because every shadow we banish makes the universe a little brighter for everyone else." Years later, when asked about the nature of humanity by my own species' children, I tell them this story. I tell them about a captain who smiled in the face of death, about a crew that turned their ship into light itself, about a species that looked at the darkness between stars and saw not something to fear, but something to illuminate. But mostly, I tell them why humans smile. Not because they're strange, or mad, or fearless. They smile because they know something the rest of us are still learning. The darkness isn't empty. It's just waiting for someone brave enough to bring the light. And humans, they'd been practicing that their entire existence.